Most of us, after leaving a narcissistic abusive relationship, has dealt with the smear campaign. And based on what I've been hearing from all of you, it is a devastating experience, one at which we often feel at the end of ourselves, we don't know what else to do, and we feel incredibly frustrated, powerless, and isolated. So today we're going to be talking about what is a smear campaign? Why do narcissists and other toxic people engage in it? What do we do that's the common mistakes, and what can we actually do to combat it in a realistic terms and under the ways in which we actually have control? Oh, it's interesting. Someone already said they're having a smear campaign with somebody they don't even know. Yeah, isn't that wild how this can happen from a variety of directions? It can be really devastating to us to have a smear campaign. So let's start out with defining it, and then we're going to get into talking about what you can, the common mistakes that we make, and what you can do if it's happening to you. First of all, I would love to know. I know that everybody's just coming on board and getting here because we're just this live is being announced. But so let me introduce myself. I will continue to as more people join us. But just so that those of you who are not familiar with me know who I am and know what we're talking about today, I'm Dr. Kerry Kerr McAvoy. I am a licensed psychologist with over 20 years of counseling experience, and I see a lot of my friends here, and I'm so excited. Thank you so much, you guys, for joining me. Right now, I'm streaming live from Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. So I do this every Tuesday. So if you are looking for advice, I always announce it a day ahead on YouTube. And we talk about everything related to narcissistic abuse. So today, because I asked a question last week, I was working on new series, new mini courses, and I wanted to know what is it that you really wanted a lot of help with. And one of there was an option, to write an option, and one of the option was, let me know. And many of you, I think at least maybe 8 or 10 of you across various platforms said, I'm battling a smear campaign. I don't know what to do. I really need some help. So I thought, great, this is an awesome topic. It's one that there's a little bit of conversation about, but not loads of it. I know it's maybe more of a newer maybe not a newer concept, but a newer topic. It's just not much energy and times devoted to it. And I'll be honest, I don't devote a lot of time to it because it's not something I'm battling with, which I know it really that shouldn't govern what I talk about or don't talk about, because it isn't really what I'm battling with, is what you're battling with. But it leads me sometimes to having to do more research, which is a good thing. It's a good thing that I have to check into it. And it's not like I haven't ever been smeared. I have. It's just that my narcissist doesn't live in the same country. So for him to influence me when he's not even living in the same community we were living in when it happened, it's just not something I'm battling with, but I have battled with it. I certainly battle with it in my hometown where I grew up. And I certainly have experienced being in the doghouse and having people say unfair, very cruel, very unkind, untrue things about me. And it is, as Antonia says, it is horrific. I agree. It's a horrific experience. So let's talk about, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, no, we're not talking about smearing jam on a piece of bread. We're talking, or butter, peanut butter. We're talking about when somebody maliciously maligns you, when they begin to spread untrue rumors or partial facts or exaggerated details about who you are in order to harm you, or to isolate you, to paint you in a bad light. That is a smear campaign. And I know that a lot of people feel like, well, I have freedom of speech, right? I can say whatever I want. Actually, legally, you don't. You don't have complete freedom of speech. You don't have the ability to harm somebody financially with falsehoods, or to harm somebody around areas that they have a perceived right of privacy. Say, for example, you're at a baseball game with a new person and you kiss this person on, you know, this game is being filmed, broadcasted live. You're taking a risk that that new relationship is going to be seen and reported on. So if somebody then shares that detail about you, even though you can presume that you have a right to privacy of who you're dating, you actually didn't, because you put yourself in a public eye and that has been potentially been observed, therefore it can be talked about. But there's a lot of details about our lives that we just presume the right to privacy. And what happens in these abusive relationships on both victim's side as well as the abuser's side is that we walk away and we feel like we should be able to say whatever we want. And yeah, you can say that, but you actually carry a legal risk doing that. You carry it. And I should know this more so than ever anybody because I actually wrote a book, my memoir, for Love You More, which it is a tell all. It definitely is a tell all. And I do give away details that he has a right to privacy about. So I know where, why, but a little bit about this because I'm stepping into this and I'm taking the risk and I've actually consulted legal advice. So I know what the limits are and I know what the risks are. But this happens to a lot of us after we get out of these toxic relationships. So let's talk about why a narcissist or a toxic person would begin to do a smear campaign. Well, there are, for one, it extends their power and control over you. You know, in a way, you continue to live under fear because they're talking about you behind your back. And so you don't know what's really being said. So you start to feel like you have to look over your shoulder. It makes you really edgy. You wonder who knows what. It's just a really great way to shut you down and to limit your sense of confidence and to keep you under their thumb, even though they're no longer in a relationship with you. Another reason is that it is public retaliation. It's their way of being able to say, I'm the victim here. This person has offended me or affected me, and they affected me in these ways. And so it's a really great way for them to, one, protect their reputation, but also to create a narrative. I know that I did hear from my ex after the whole relationship was over, and he knew I was writing about the book. He was upset about it. And he wrote me and he said, only you and I know what actually happens in the relationship. And I know that what he actually meant was, only he has his interpretation of what happened in the relationship, not my interpretation, is the truth. That he already was trying to do damage control, even though he doesn't have a lot of fear because where he's living, most people can't read English. So he doesn't have a lot of risk of having people know about the story and recognizing him. But it does, for those who are still in the same community, and I know a lot of you are, it's a great way for them to get ahead of what you might say and offer an alternative narrative to what you're going to say. And so it's a great way for them to do management control of the story and image control. Another reason that they do this is because they really want to punish us. You know, it's weird because when you first met that narcissist, they thought that you walked on water, that you were like the answer to all their prayers, that you're going to make the world right for them again. And once they got into the relationship, they realized you're human. And once that happened, they began to devalue you and prepare to discard you because they have this magical thinking, this supernatural, idealistic image of the world that somehow the right person or the right experience is going to fix everything that's wrong with their life. And when they discover that every person is human, that you put your pants on one leg at a time, they begin to get ready to, they're discouraged because that's not what they're looking for, a magical solution. And you're not providing that because you're not superhuman. You're not perfect. So they start to then feel disgust and contempt for you, and they start to move towards, that's why they start to tear you down. And weird as it is, instead of them owning the fact that this is unrealistic and that they should have a more mature view of the world, instead they see this as your fault. Your failure to live up to their expectation is hurtful, and they're angry with you. Remember, you're dealing with an 18 to 2.5-year-old emotionally, and they're mad and they're having a tantrum. And one of the ways in which they want to get you back is they want to punish you. And how better than to really destroy your reputation in the community, to say that you're not all that to the world? How better for punishing and degrading you for that, for your imperfections, for the fact that you're a regular person like everybody else. And that's, so I know that's maddening because it's so crazy making and it's unfair. That's, why would someone do this? It really, as some Jump for Joy said, it's super messed up. It's a very messed up reason why narcissists and other toxic people do this. So that's another reason why they do it, is for revenge and for punishment. They want power and control. It sets up the narrative. It creates them a victim story. It also is for image control. So let's talk about the common mistakes that most of us make when we find ourselves in this position. One is we come out defensive. Whenever you come out defensive, most of us have this sense when we hear defensiveness that there's some grain of truth because the person's acting upset and triggered. So then we wonder what's more going on behind the story. It alarms us. We feel like there's something wrong. So then we begin to wonder if there's merit because a person's defensive. And they also you begin to over explain. You start to, it's like somebody just commented that when they walk into the room, they feel it. They feel that people have been talking about them. It creates a sense of you feeling like you don't know where you can go and what you can say. And so you start to say too much. And nobody deserves the details of whatever it is that you want to say or don't want to say unless it is what you have to decide what you want people to know. You don't need to begin to anticipate what somebody's saying because you think they might be saying it. Again, it makes you look insecure. It shows that you're off balance. And again, it gives them the upper hand. And that's exactly what they want. They want that upper hand. We also begin to start to feel like we can't trust anybody and that we have to really isolate ourselves. So we just stop going out. We stop exactly, Mrs. T. You just shut down and you shut people out because it's just safer not to say anything to anyone. So you start to really narrow and limit your world and isolate it basically to yourself or to a few people that you feel you can trust because you just feel like you don't know who else you can trust. So let's talk. Yeah, Gen XX said, yeah, I can't trust anybody now. Exactly. And that is the point of it. It really reduces your contact. Oh, thank you so much for that gift. But I want you to remind you of something. Healing depends on support. The more you feel you can't talk to anybody, the more you feel cut off from everybody, you are taking away one of your best resources for healing. Definitely, and I agree. I like, Antonia, what you're saying. You're saying the internet helps. Definitely. That's why I have now reduced my cost of the Toxic Free Relationship Club. So there's two levels. There's the club membership, which includes a weekly, hourly group chats with me and other resources. But then there's a lower level. So if you're just looking for a community base with access to me, consider joining for $20 a month. It's actually $19.99 dollars a month. Consider joining as a way to be able to have a sense of other people who understand you're safe in the privacy of a server that your ex can't find. So that's one opportunity. But the other opportunity is what we're doing here. We are able to come here and chat together and talk about this, and then you meet other people, and maybe those people could actually become friends. You could start to develop a relationship. I know that my closest relationships these days are found online. They're people you know. I mean, Lisa Sunny is Stronger Than Before is one of my closest friends. Roll of Roller Coaster Than Love is another really, really super close friend of mine. We talk almost daily. And it is so helpful because then we're able to check. Oh, and there's Joshua. We're able, even I met him. He's another fantastic creator. If you aren't following Mr. Joshua, child therapist, he's very informed about trauma, about abuse. He's an excellent resource for your kids. So we meet people like that, and then our world expands because then we have greater resources as a result of that. So watch out for that. I know it's maybe some of you think, well, maybe I should just leave your community. I'll tell you, for me, that was really helpful. I'm not living in the same town that I lived in that marriage. I'm not around my ex. He doesn't have his sphere of friends are not mine. We're completely have separate worlds. And I have to say that's brought me a lot of relief. But a lot of you can't do that. And I know that. I know you can't do it. So here's some practical realities, and then I'll start taking your questions and we can talk about your examples, but we can also talk about other things as well. We can kind of expand it. And for those of you who are not familiar with me, I'm Dr. Kerry Kerr McAvoy. I'm a licensed psychologist with over 20 years of counseling experience, and I'm also a narcissistic abuse survivor. Yeah, exactly, Antonio. I know a lot of us cannot leave our community. That for a lot of us, it's not possible. Or as if shared ruled the world says, it's happening at work. What are you supposed to do when it's a work relationship that's doing this, not even just a romantic relationship? Or it might be a family relationship that's doing this, not a romantic partner. So it can take on a lot of forms. It's not necessarily just romantic relationships. It's anybody who decides they want to either scapegoat you. That's another form of it. A smear campaign can also be viewed as scapegoating, where they ostracize and then begin to smear a person as a way to sort of control the whole situation. So let's talk about what you actually can do and what's really, really helpful. One, I want you to begin to I'm gonna tell you a hard truth. You guys, anybody who knows me knows that I am a person who's radically honest. So here's your dose of honesty today. You can't control what's being said about you to other people. You have no control over that. Stop trying to control it. You're only giving that person more power and the words that they say more power by trying. The reality is you can't. I remember years ago listening to actually, I think it was a celebration of discipline, or yes, yeah, celebration of discipline by Richard Foster. It's a Christian literature. He talks about the character, the virtues of a Christian life, and one of them was, and a lot of you are like, why is she talking about that? How does that relate to this? But one of them was the practice of silence. The practice of silence has to do with reputation management. I bet you didn't know that. Richard Foster explains it in the book about how we tend to like dive in and try to take care of ourselves, protect our image. You actually can't do image control. You actually really can't. I mean, try. There's an example in the book where I guess there was a priest talking to her mentor who's trying to, yes, thank you. It's a fantastic book. A priest talking to her mentor is trying to control their reputation, and he had him open an old fashioned pillowcase was full of down, full of geese feathers, and he said, shake that into the wind. And he goes, now watch all those feathers scatter. He says, now I want you to go collect all of them. And the guy looked at him and said, I can't. He goes, yeah, that's the point. You cannot control what other people say about you any more than you can control what's being said about, any more than you can go find every feather that has now floated away. So trying to control what's being shared about you is a futile, exhausting, helpless, hopeless experience that you just need to give up on. It's not going to happen. I wish I could make it happen. I'm sure every politician who's had that happen to them wish they could make that happen, but we can't. What we can do is go out and live your most authentic self in a careful way. So what do I mean by that? I mean, don't stifle yourself. Be who you naturally are and allow yourself, how you conduct yourself in the world, to be your testimony. Allow it to be what shapes what people see about you. And if those who are determined to believe those terrible words about you, then they were never your friends to begin with. They're not people who are deep thinkers who challenge stuff and see if things line up. They're people who are test the wind and see which way the wind's blowing, and that's how they govern what they do and what who they follow and what they believe. They're not the kind of deep people you really actually want in your life. To me, exactly. Somebody says, consider it's the trash taking itself out. Exactly. And I'll tell you, you may be surprised to hear this, but when I had my partner, my first husband, dying of cancer, I lost a lot of relationships around that experience. You'd say, why? Why would people distance themselves from a person who's losing a partner? Well, because we don't like death. It makes us uncomfortable because we're awkward. We don't like bad things happening to other people. We don't like being, I mean, there's lots of complicated reasons. Some of my closest relationships ended with that. Now, it wasn't a smear campaign, it was for something different. But what I found was it was a sifting experience, and it shook out who's really there for me. And I was surprised. There are people who showed up I never dreamed had my back. I never even counted them in my outer circle of relationships. And there are people, I had one woman who supported me weekly for months. Weekly. She gave me money weekly for months. I didn't even know if I liked her, but I'll tell you, after that experience, I loved her. So we may find that there are people that we didn't know really thought highly of us, admired us, who had our back, who's going to come through for us. And then you may find that people you thought were thicker than blood, thicker than thieves, you may find that they don't. That they're shallow and they're fair weathered, and that once you go through a little bit of testing, they're out of there. So consider this a way of learning more about your social support system. So those are my two big pieces of advice: is don't let it to limit you. You go out and shine your natural self, and know that your testimony, the way in which you live your life out, is in direct contradiction to what the narcissist is saying. They're saying you're crazy, insane, that you control them, that you're always arguing, but you're out there and you're serving on the PTA, and you're showing up at school, and you're helping out at church, and you're showing up for your neighbor neighbors' events and you're being great and easygoing and a delight to talk to. And anybody who's wise, who knows how to see through shit's going to say, wait, that's not lining up. That's not been my experience of this person at all. Maybe this other person has some problems that I'm not really seeing clearly, but why would somebody talk badly? Why are they not moving on with their life and just focusing on the new relationship? So, just the nature of you being yourself, you can deter a lot what's being said. But hey, I know it's super, super painful. It's very hard when we see our this happen because it's so unfair and because we're trying to move on with our lives and we just want the drama to stop. We want them to move on with their lives. But see, here's the thing. Narcissists are miserable people, and they really want to pass that misery along to everyone else, including you. So they're willing to do whatever they can to harm you because in their minds, they don't see you as a real person. Your suffering doesn't matter, your pain doesn't matter. They want you to have they want you to be as unhappy as they are. And one way to do that is for you to pass that on and to do what they can to kind of corrupt your social support system. So it is really it is unfair and it's super hard, but us not giving into it. In fact, I knew there for a while that my ex stalked me. I could see it because I had analytics on my website. I had analytics here. Where he is really remote. It's not many people in that area would tune in and watch him. It's pretty obvious. I mean, come on. How many people do I know in this remote area? I don't. So the fact that somebody consistently shows up over and over and over, it's got to be him. But I found that I could let it shape what I say. I could stop talking about things because I'm afraid what he might think or how he's going to react. Or I can say to hell with it. You know what? I'm not going to give him that power over me. I know somebody said because I posted a video today everywhere about are you limiting what you do or do you find that you're still feeling fear and doing less things after abuse? If so, then you're still under that narcissist control. And that person said you're victim blaming. No, I'm not victim blaming. Victim blaming would say it's your fault that you're under that control. What I'm saying is we have the power to make or shape our life. And by us still living under the fear and intimidation of this other person, then we're limiting ourselves. We're taking away our ability to have full control of our lives over somebody that's not even directly in our life anymore. I just don't want anyone to have that kind of control over me. And I get why it's hard. I get why it's hard. It's very hard. I'm battling how hard it is right now for myself in my life. So I understand why many of us feel managed by this. We feel really shut up. But I don't want my life being robbed of my opportunities and my options. I just don't want that. So that's why I'm so working so hard. In fact, one of my long-term followers says he's making new friends and he's feeling a lot happier. And I'm so thrilled that that's happening for you, Stealth Warrior. I'm so glad that you're taking your life back like that. Yeah, it's awesome. So yeah, so Dolly, how do I suggest facing a smear campaign full of lies? Is it you act like it's not happening. You directly go out and you face the world with your best, brightest self, and you behave in a way that is authentic to you. And anyone who then believes that pack of lies is not either dealing with you directly, not understanding who you are, and not giving you a chance. And you know what? I think then that's not somebody I'd want to know. That kind of sifts your world for you. And then you know who's really safe and who's really not safe. And guys, thank you so much for those gifts. I super, super appreciate it. It's really, really helpful to me. I don't know how much you know how much it means to me that we're here and doing this together. So thank you so much. I know the person who's giving all the gifts is somebody new to me, and I hope I get to know you a lot better. It is hard advice. Gail, I'm glad that you feel like it's great advice, but it is hard advice. That's the unfortunate part. Healing from narcissistic abuse is not for the coward. It takes enormous bravery to do these things, enormous bravery. We are going to be battling ourselves in ways that we never have before. But here's what I'm finding. I don't appreciate what happened to me. To I would love to be able to go back and change some of my decisions so it didn't happen. But I'll tell you, who I am today, I'm not for sure how I could have got here any other way. I like who I am today more than I've ever liked myself. I hate to say that's the gift of the abuse, but it's the gift that I've given myself from this abusive experience. Maybe that's a way to phrase it. It's the gift I've given myself after surviving this abusive situation. Don't wish it on anybody. I would never wish it on myself again, but it has distilled in me a sense of who I am and how I want to be and conduct myself through the world. And I don't want that ever to be taken away from me again. I don't. So yeah, I'm working really hard to take these lessons and to extend it, not just to that a relationship, but to extend it in all relationships. How am I showing up in the world? How am I letting you affect me right now? How am I then? What am I saying and do? I find that I can be shitty. I can be toxic. I'm actively resisting the things that the fleas that I've attracted that I've picked up along the way by living around toxic people. I'm actively working against what's happened to me and how it has affected me. So those are some things about smear campaign. I'm so glad it's helpful. I'm hoping maybe to do a little mini course on it too, so that you guys can take advantage of it. The biggest request I got from all of you, and I so let me talk about that. I'm working on it right now, and I plan to like do some videos about it so that you know more about it, like what I'm creating, and have some input into it. But I'm creating a course on how to spot and avoid toxic situations and people. So I'm actually working on that. That was a resounding request from me, was you want to get better at understanding danger, understanding manipulation, being able to know what to do in the moment, because it's really not just about boundaries. I mean, anybody who says you just need better boundaries, they don't understand. It's not about better boundaries. If it was just a matter of boundaries, then I wouldn't even be here. I wouldn't have a job. You guys would be doing fine without me. It's why boundaries don't work. It's how we have been socialized to ignore our basic gut instinct. I lately have been been listening to Gavin DeBecker narrate his own book called The Gift of Fear. I cannot say enough about this resource. It is a how to predict danger. And one of the things he says really early on in the book is that you have all the skills you've ever needed, that you are the best in the world at predicting danger. You're better than anything. You're better than a dog. You're better than a wolf out in the wild. You are the best creature at predicting danger. Now, why are we? And he even gives an example. He says one of the examples is how many car accidents do you get into? And I'll bet you can even tell that the car next to you is getting ready to move into your lane and they haven't even turned on their flashers. That's how good you are at predicting danger. You're able to take a huge heavy vehicle of steel, shoot it down the road at high speeds, and avoid danger. And you do this daily. So if you can do that, and you're getting very minimal signals, you're not even looking at the person in the face, and yet you're anticipating movement, and you can do that, there's no reason why you can't do it in your social life. There's really no reason. It's because we have learned to discount them. We have been not taught how to spot them. And so that's what I'm creating right now. I'm working on a new video series, mini course series. It will be available on TikTok series. It will also make it available elsewhere so that you guys can purchase it, so you can learn how to spot dangerous situations and dangerous people, and understand even ask yourself question, know what the risk is, and know what to do in the middle of the risk. Because one of the things he says, and I love this, he says, the more you learn this within yourself and you gain confidence in yourself, then you can go out into the world, because you will have a really good sense of when you're really actually in danger and when you're really not. There was a situation that happened to me when I was visiting Mexico, visiting a friend, and I went for a walk alone down a street, and it was getting dusk. So the sun was starting to set, and it was getting a little kind of like that early darkness look. And there was a crew of construction workers, all men, who were finishing up the site, and they were kind of packing up. And I was alone on the street, and I saw them ahead of me. I saw that they were there, that I was alone. There was nobody else around. Everybody was like, the street was empty except for me and them. And as I got closer, one of them took on a look. You know that look. As a woman, you can't not low that look. And he started to swagger towards me, and he had his buddies watching. And so he was invested. He was invested in doing something to me to make him look big in front of the group. And I could sense that I was in danger. And my thought was, well, I could turn around and run and hope I'm faster than him, but he's younger, fitter than me. And I didn't think I could do that. My other thought was I could start to call for help, but I didn't know anybody locally. I didn't know how fast anybody would respond. And my next thought was, okay, I could face him down, because this guy, I could tell he had an investment, because people were watching him. The investment in his younger guys, and seeing that he was a cool guy. He was one of the older guys. So he was older, and the other guys were younger. So I knew he had an emotional investment and looking good. So I squared my shoulders up, stood up taller, and stared hard at him and started walking towards him. So I thought, I gave the signal, I'm taking you on. Now, I could do it there, and I'll tell you, I probably was in more danger there than I am in most of the times when I go out on a date. I can take that and then turn it in and use it in other situations. We can get better at being protective and careful and watching out for ourselves. So it's possible. So I'm working on that course right now. I'm super, super excited about it. I will keep you updated on how it goes. And I also want to let you know, for those of you in TikTok, I have just reduced for a Black Friday special. My new series right now called Narcissistic Abuse Healing in 7 Steps is right now reduced to, I think it's like um, 4.99, maybe 3.90. It's low. I mean, it's under $5. So if you've been looking to take advantage of it, you don't want to pay the $16. It's off, $11 off to the end of the month. So please, and I'm only allowing 1,000 purchases at that price. So hop on if that's something you feel you're interested in. I just had someone finish it and they said it was very helpful to them. They really liked it. They thought it was gave them a lot to think about. So if that's something you're looking for, please take advantage of that now. And also, I will be making that available by the end of the week elsewhere. And I'll let the rest of you know where you can find it elsewhere. So, what kind of questions do you, yes, exactly, Gail. We need our intuition is highly sophisticated, but the problem is that for whatever reason, this is lots of complicated reasons, and those are the reasons we're going to get into in this series. Why we don't trust our intuition, why other things come in and then make us disregard it. Sometimes it is we want to be nice. Sometimes it is we don't believe people could be that bad. We assume that they're like us and they're not. I mean, we make all sorts of assumptions that we shouldn't. Sometimes we just think it's not possible when it really is. In fact, those of you who know my story, who've read Love You More, know that I start to suspect near the end of the book that I'm being poisoned, that I had all the signs of arsenic poison. I was even researching in the relationship. I sat on a bed next to him while he's watching YouTube, looking for reasons why I had white lines across all my fingernails and why my toenails were falling off. And I was looking at poisons. I'm in the relationship and I'm researching poisons. Ding, 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 ding. After listening Gavin talk about predictors of abuse, I now realize when I was interviewing his past relations, he had a history of violence. So now I'm looking back, I know that if I sat down with Gavin DeBecker today, he'd say, hell yeah, that's what happened to you. You had all of the indicators, all of it. And you knew it. You even knew it and you didn't believe it. So that's one of the common reasons we also dismiss danger is we just don't believe it's possible. We don't think people would stoop that low. And the reality is they would. If they have enough reasons, they would. And people always come back when they hear me tell me that. They're like, well, why would he poison you? Life insurance, guys. I was a widow. Life insurance. He was after the money. Absolutely. He even told me he thought it was unfair that I had the money. He thought it was very unfair. So, yeah, it's bizarre. Somebody asked what my credentials are. I am a Ph.D. in clinical psychology with over 20 years of counseling experience, and I still got in abusive situations. So it can happen to anybody for sure. And I'm so glad, Needy, that you're here. I love the comments that you post on my stuff. I so appreciate it. And so I think it's the first time that we ever got to chat together. I've never seen you in one of my lives before. So I'm very, very thrilled that you're here. So Mrs. T, if you need support and you're really feeling like you just don't have it, please reach out to me privately. Let's talk. I can certainly help make that happen for you so that you get support that you need. And am I trauma informed? Absolutely, I'm trauma informed. In fact, I'm going through Dr. Ramani's narcissistic abuse certification as we speak. She's now offering that. You guys can start looking for that by the probably early 2024. You can find people who will have certification by either going through Sandra Brown's certification with PESI or through Dr. Ramadi's certification through PESI. For those of you who don't know, like what's PESI? PESI is a education source for all clinicians in the United States. But it also offers it. I don't think necessarily you can get certification in other worlds, but you certainly can get certifications. You can get certifications in the United States through PESI. So if you're a clinician who's looking for continuing education, you can certainly get certification through that. And this is a question that comes up a lot for me, Cupcakes. Thank you so much for asking. I don't see one-on-ones anymore. I used to. I'm burnt out on direct direct counseling. I do plan to offer I'm finishing up a group coaching right now on Healed and Empowered, which is healing after narcissistic abuse. And I am going to be opening up another group offer for group coaching on violence, prediction of violence, and becoming more secure in ourselves, gaining confidence. So those of you who complete the mini course on how to spot and avoid toxic situations, you can then certainly look to join a live interactive group experience with me, small group experience with me, if that's something that you're interested in. And another great way to have direct contact with me is to join my membership, because as I mentioned, I don't know if you caught it, but I go live. I offer office hours every week to that group exclusively. And it's usually a call of about 6 to 8 people. And we talk about among ourselves about our problems, what's going on. I direct it and facilitate it. But it's a great way if you're looking for group support, but also led by me. So it's a more intimate experience. It's less than a cost of a coaching call. It's $75 a month. And you get, like I said, 4 direct hours with me. So that's another really great way to get support if you're looking support, because I don't offer direct counseling anymore. So Heather, you said you're a woman trying to figure out how to get out. Yeah, cognitive dissonance and the trauma bond are two brutal things that really hold us up from being able to exit a toxic relationship. Are those terms that you're familiar with? Do you know how to break a trauma bond and resolve the cognitive dissonance? For me, the cognitive dissonance was worse than the trauma bond. I know for some of us, the trauma bond's worse, but I already had been trauma bonded before. I kind of had a sense of that, or what was going on around that. The fact that I felt this difficulty being separate from the person who was being abusive to me. So I was more cognizant of that. But what confused me the most was the cognitive dissonance. And what that is I couldn't tell what was real. I didn't know if my partner was meaning what he said when he said he wanted to get help. I didn't know whether or not he was actually doing the work of getting help. He said he's supposedly going to therapy. We were spending money on therapy. He said he'd never worked so hard. Was that true? Or was he actually just giving me a line? And because of my inability to clarify what was real, I was so stuck. And I agonized and agonized and agonized over it. And I had never heard of the cognitive dissonance. I didn't know what I was battling with. And nobody ever even told me how I could break it, which is what my course is. First Steps to Leaving a Narcissist gives you the steps to break the cognitive dissonance that I wish I had, that I was struggling with, that I didn't know, because there's 3 stages of cognitive dissonance. The first is you make this massive discovery that your partner isn't who they said that they were, and you realize you're in a relationship with a stranger, and that's just terrifying. I remember that moment where I literally thought, I don't know who he is. I've made such a big discovery. I have no idea. And I'm married to this guy. And I have so much things in motion with him. And then when you stay, you start to struggle with, okay, I'm starting to realize this person isn't who they said they were. I don't always know what the truth is, but is the relationship worth saving? That starts to be your second stage, where you start is it good or is it bad? And then you go back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. And then when the last stage of it is, you start to say, oh my, what's wrong with me? Because I'm still here and this relationship is tearing me apart. And I know that I'm being harmed and I can't seem to stop it. And I now feel like I'm betraying myself. And when you get into that stage, it is really, really upsetting, very, very upsetting. So yeah, if Heather, that may be where you're stuck, is that spot. And then even one trying to assess whether or not, because you just said, I have kids, and then you see that's another reason, well, does it hurt the kids to leave? And what if they have to manage this person alone? And is there really such thing as no contact when I have to co-parent or parallel parent with this person? I mean, all these things become decisions that are so confusing that you don't know what to do. And then you end up doing nothing, thinking, here's the part that I got tripped up on, thinking that making no decision is making no decision, like you still have both alternatives open to you. But making no decision is a decision to stay. You're staying because you're making no decision to leave. So you aren't leaving. It's not like you're making no decision. You're actually making a decision. I didn't see that. I kept thinking, as long as I stood up on top of the fence and I could see, leaving, staying, I was doing neither. No. I was staying. I didn't realize I was on the side of staying. So that I wish I'd known that too. And I do, that is true. So Robin Bird asked, well, maybe it's more important to find out if they're cheating and if that would be more damaging. I sat there too. I kept thinking, if I could prove this person wasn't working, if I could prove that they were not doing what they were saying they're doing, then I would have the reason to leave. I would have the evidence. And I'll tell you that actually there is not enough evidence. I found a lot of evidence. And you guys hearing the evidence would say, you found that and you still stayed? Yeah, because it wasn't enough. That's the problem. You start to feel like despite getting evidence, you need more evidence and you need more evidence and you need more evidence. It's never enough evidence. That's part of the cognitive dissonance. You just are frozen. Exactly. You just are frozen. So you have to go back. Here's the book. Here's what the book looks like. It's called First Steps to Leaving a Narcissist. It's actually part of a 7-hour course. It includes video, exercises, reflective questions, and you can get the whole course for $99, or you can get this book for $15. It's on Amazon. You can also contact me for a copy of a PDF that you can put on your mobile device and keep it private if you're interested in that. It's also, I priced it as $15 as well. And what it does is it walks you through why you're staying and why you're being confused, and what is actually the truth. Because once you get to the point that you know the truth, then you can make a clearer decision. It gives you your real options. What are you going to do because you're in this relationship with this person? Yeah, I remember waking up. I remember the moment that I came to and realized how damaging this relationship was and how terrible this was. And in that moment, so much clarity, so much started to happen. And yeah, I was being financially abused, Gail, not in the same way maybe you were. Mine was that all my assets were tied up in a company that I shared with him, and he was going to insist he take half. So he wanted continue to have control over the company, even though it was all my capital. I put it all into that, and that's, by the way, why he's poisoning me. Because if I died, he inherited the whole thing. He didn't have to share it with me; he could get it. So his biggest plan was if he could take it from me, and the second plan was, well, then at least if we divorced, he could go for half of it. But I felt that was unfair because this was what I was living on, was my legacy from that last relationship of 31 years. And hell no, I'm not giving him that money. So that was how I was being abused, is that he was going to like put me into this massively awful position of losing all of this and then really shaping my direction financially, what I could and couldn't do. So yeah, I was feeling really stuck. Now, yeah, I had pocket money. That's true. I had pocket money. But I left that marriage with 2 suitcases and moved into a new town with no car, no home, and 2 suitcases. That's all. That's all I had. I was on the floor of my kid's apartment for several weeks before I was able to get a studio apartment and before I was able to start to, yeah, I did win. How I won was I figured out what he wanted more and knew that he would settle for a huge amount of money and he'd give up the control of the company if he got desperate enough. And I knew he was impulsive and he loved to spend money, so he'd get desperate. And that's what happened. I played it out. I played a longer game, and I waited and waited for him to get desperate and need money now, and that knew that he would give away his sort of like, again, I'm thinking all these biblical references, but it was like Esau selling out his blessing, his birthright. That's what he did. He sold it out to me. So I made a negotiation like Jacob and bought it from him. Now, should I have had to buy my own capital? No, I shouldn't had to, but I knew it was a way to get him out of my life. So I knew it was going to cost me something, and that's what it cost me. But we all can do this. What I did was not unique to me, and it's not because I'm better at this than you are. You have the ability to do this. You just need to get into the head of the predator that you're in a relationship with, figure out what their motivations are, figure out what your leverage is, start to begin to keep things that you're doing private, and see this as a chess game that you got to start to play. It's not checkers, it's chess. You have to start to play a couple moves ahead of them. It's hard work and I hate it. Honestly, I never want to have to think like that again about anything. Unfortunately, we live in a world filled with predators. And so it does require us sometimes having to think like this, to become proactive like this. And I know it's super, super hard. It's really hard. Yeah, some of you said I just offered half. Here's the other thing. I want to, here's another tip. Don't give away whatever you have to do. Whatever, don't give it away easily. Act like whatever you're giving up is a really hard, painful thing, even if it's not. They want to know that they're taking something from you that's very, very difficult. So I want you to begin to act like this is highly strategic, very close to your heart, very big to you. So, and throw them off from what the other thing is that also is big to you. They have to feel like they're winning something. So begin to build up your investment in areas that you actually aren't all that invested, and start to play that off. I know that's it's devious, and it's probably a lot of the ways a lot of your minds don't work. I realize that, but it is a really strategic way so that when they take it from you, they think they've taken something huge and that it's costly and that they feel like they've won. But you know that they actually didn't. That was you set that up. That was it was your bait. It was the goat that you put out for the tiger. You were ready to expend the goat's life to save the village's life. So you deliberately bait something and act like it's a big deal to you. Yeah, Melissa, exactly. I'm glad you're getting it. You have to do this that way because they're competitive. They're very invested in taking you down and paying you back. And it's back to, if you missed the first part of this live, I talk about the fact that they're angry. And if you listen to any self-aware narcissist, they'll share this with you. It's very bizarre thinking. They're angry the fact that they wanted you, that they believe that they're going to have this good life with you, that you are somehow going to solve all the problems for them. They're angry the fact that you're human and that you're imperfect and that you didn't fulfill this magical idealized image that they had of you. So they want to then take you down and smash you for the audacity of not coming through. Think of again of a 2-year-old. So when a 2-year-old doesn't get what they want, how many times do they just throw it on the ground and storm off? And you're thinking that was something that you supposedly really valued, and you just smashed it because you didn't get your way? It's the same process. They're a toddler in an adult body is what they are. So see that it's not rational, it's not reasonable, it's not about fairness, not at all. Yeah, it's bizarre. It's an adult behaving like a child. I know. So Melissa says he's furious with me because he filed for divorce first, but he's mad at her for that because he feels you made him do that, Melissa. You made him file for divorce. How dare you? If you had just been perfect, he wouldn't have had to take that action. But it's your fault that he had to do that. It's not logical. I know it's just not logical. It's crazy. It's very, very crazy. Yeah, so Mrs. T says, I was supposed to put him through school, work, and a career. You weren't supposed to put the kids first, or you're supposed to make the money and his success. Absolutely. Yeah, they make these ridiculous conclusions about what you're supposed to do for them, and how dare you be a real person, and have a life and have your own priorities. How dare you, not show up in the it is totally crazy. It is borderline psychotic, and I'm being serious with that word as a clinician. I've been around psychotic people. This is crazy thinking. It's not logical. It's utterly crazy. So yeah, and a part of us at times, don't we also think a little bit like that? We get a little magical in our thinking so we can understand it. We remember those days when we were like that. That does help us. But it also, though, but beginning to get into their head is a great way because they've gotten into yours. They've gotten really good into yours. That's how they've done everything they've done so well. They've been using intimidation. They've been using threats. They've been using power strategies. They've been doing all these things in order to make you comply. But when you begin to start to understand their mentality and how the illogical logic, then you begin to kind of take the control back. Do they have moments of clarity? Yeah, they do have moments of clarity. Love more 14. They do absolutely have moments of clarity. But they will last only seconds. And because here's why. Those moments of clarity bring on a tremendous sense of shame and guilt. No, not guilt so much. Shame and Yeah, probably just shame because they're not very prone to guilt. They part of their brain look when they look at neuroimaging of narcissists, the area of their brain that lights up when you feel a lot of guilt, it just is not that active. So they don't feel a lot of remorse for what they did. But they what it does is it creates the sense of being a fraud and ashamed and they feel embarrassed or bad and they don't like that so they quickly justify. They'll jump right to justification and they'll make excuses of why you deserved whatever it is that they did. And so, yeah, I've seen those moments of like logical clarity. And then within seconds, I'm not nanoseconds even, they've already like whipped it around, flipped it into a new script, into a new narrative, and then now justified why they did what they did. So they feel entitled to it and that it was deserved, that you deserved it. It's wild. And so please, anytime you guys think that that's another reason why all this conversation, trying to negotiate, work stuff out doesn't work because even if you were able to successfully do it, it's not going to last. It's just if there's you did all that effort for a few seconds that can't stick because they can't face the fact that they're flawed human beings who have shame and are imperfect like everybody else. They can't face that. And so they quickly shift it into some justification why you deserve that. Yeah, Stacy, isn't it bizarre? Stacy says, "Holy shit, I feel like you were a fly on the wall in her home and I left 5 months ago." It is because that mindset creates the same mentality and behavior across the board. That's how we can talk about this and have it be so universal because my narcissist did the same thing as your narcissist did, which did the same thing as Stealth Warriors narcissist did, who did the same thing. It's the script. When you're running from a viewpoint of an 18-month-year-old emotional mentality in a adult body, it's the same script. They do the same things because that's how it's so actually it's very limited. They're not very original. I'm sure any narcissist here who hears me say that doesn't want to hear that, but they're not original. Everything they have done, everybody like them has done the same thing and done it thousands to millions to billions a time over. It is very predictable. Tracy, I want you to hear that. I want you to next time you feel scared about what's happening, they're predictable. They're predictable. That's why we can get better at this and start to trust our intuition and see through it because they're so predictable. So when we start to feel scared, like we don't know what to do, or we're going to end up like falling for somebody else, if we just stand back, learn to listen to ourselves, learn to read the room, learn to hear what people tell us, learn to watch for consistency in behavior, we can begin to spot this predictability. We can spot their immaturity, their rigidity, their inflexibility, their bizarre thinking. We can start to spot it. Even in the middle of a love bombing, we can start to spot it. It's very possible. Yeah, so just for laughs says mine won't let me speak. I must agree with what he says, and he goes on for hours and hours like a lecture. That can you imagine what he's revealing by that? He's revealing how terribly insecure he is. The fact that he feels he has to control the floor and that you can't even say a word because God forbid you contradict him, and that he has to kind of spout on. Mine did the same, by the way. Mine would do the same thing. And then right, they go in circles. It doesn't even mean the same thing. What do I mean by rigidity and NPD? Okay, that's a great question, Cody. Thanks for asking that. So the two big things that personality disorders as a whole have is a lack of flexibility when it comes to managing crises, insecurities, emotional needs. They don't have a whole repertoire of emotional tools. They fall back on a few very old, primitive things that are used by children. They use projection, denial is a big favorite one of theirs, intellectualization, and compartmentalization. So whatever they like literally put things in boxes so they can cheat. And that happens in one box, and then they can go home and they can think they have this really great relationship with their partner, and they'll put that in another box, and they'll act like they're two separate worlds when you and I know that in a real world, it doesn't work like that. That what you do affects everything that you do. Who you are in one space is who you are in another space. They only have a few skills, a few tools to deal with their insecurities and their needs and their impulses. And they're not good at regulation. They're terrible at regulation. So that's rigidity. I heard an expert who on personality disorders say it's like instead of a musician who only knows one song. So they know Jaws. And so they play the theme song to Jaws all the time. They play it when they're in romance. They play it when they're facing something scary. They play it when they should be sad. They play it when they should be glad. They play the themes to Jaws. They don't have any other repertoire. That's the rigidity. They just don't have a whole sophisticated, that's why DBT helps, because DBT teaches better systems for regulation, for self-regulation. They just don't have it. They use power and control to regulate. They use you to regulate their insecurities. Yeah, so Claudine, you're asking a good question. Claudine is asking, with all the available knowledge today, are they intentionally avoiding personal growth? Actually, it's more complicated. It's sadder than that. And really, the answer is a lot sadder than that. Narcissists and other personality disorders don't change and don't grow because it's hardwired part of their personality. It's not like they elect this. It's not even like anxiety. When you're anxious, you can still think, I'm anxious, I'm anxious. This doesn't feel good. I feel shaken up. I'm really intimidated. I don't want to, you're aware how miserable. But when you have a personality disorder, it's part of who you are. So you first don't see it. You think the problem is everywhere around you. You don't realize that you're the sole cause of the drama, that you're creating drama everywhere. You see drama happening and you think, oh, I just live in a really crappy world. That's why I have so much drama. They don't see that they're instigating it. They see themselves as just managing it, but they're really actually the source of it. So that's the first problem. They don't see it. You have to see it to grow. Change happens by observation and awareness. They don't have it. They're very myopic. They're very blind in their ability to see it. The other problem is that they don't believe that actually they have a problem because it's part of who they are. You're asking them to change who they are. So I love Dr. Ramani's explanation. She calls it a rubber band theory. So you can tell a narcissist to change. You can teach them new skills like a rubber band. You can stretch it out. You can stretch it into new shapes. But the minute it's under stress, it pops back into shape. So the minute they're under a difficult situation, they're going to regress and do what they've always done because they're going to lose their ability to think rationally and they're going to do what's instinctual. So a narcissist is always going to be a narcissist. And there are going to be moments where they act very toxic, even when they're trying not to. So even the most self-aware narcissist is going to regress and do things that are damaging under tremendous stress. Now, it may vary. You may have someone who's further along in the process of growing, but still, I'll bet you if I got to interview Lee Hammock, he would tell me, and I do know him personally, I've had conversations with him. I bet you he would tell me, yeah, when I get into a really bad moment, I'm not a pleasant person. My first temptation is to do something very narcissistic, very, very toxic. And that will always be a persistent problem for him, no matter how much time passes. So you have to, it's more than just deciding to be different. They're actually having to change essential parts of their personality. And that's actually not feasible. I'm autistic. I will never not be autistic. I can fight against my burnout, my introvert burnout, like today, doing this live and then meeting with my group takes a lot out of me. I will be tired. I'll need to be withdrawn and kind of like recollect myself. I can't stop that. I can push through it. I can like suffer a headache and be here with you, but I'm suffering a headache. I'm not going to change the way my brain works differently and the fact that this is exhausting for me. So yeah, that's because it's the same for narcissistic personality disorder. It's part of who they are. It's very part. It is sad. It's very sad. Now, personally, I don't mind that I'm autistic. I like the superpowers it gives me. I don't like the way it's affected me negatively, but I do love some of the superpowers. But yeah, I'm not going to change that part of me any more than the narcissist is going to change that part of themselves. Yeah. And they have to go for themselves. I do agree very much. Yeah. So Mrs. T says, I have an organic injury, a brain injury, and she's going to always work against that. She can probably push against it, maybe resist some of it, but it will always be there affecting her all the time. It's just not something that's going to change. Nature, nurture, a combination of both. This is my last question because I've come up on an hour. It's both. It's nature and nurture. Some combination of both. We don't know exactly what portion of what. And no, please hear me on this. The one thing I really want you all to know, it's not because of trauma. Everybody here on this live has been traumatized, and majority of you do not have narcissistic personality disorder. If trauma caused narcissistic personality disorder, you would all have it, and you don't. So it's not trauma. Yes, it is some form of environmental and nature. You know, they're born with some vulnerabilities, then they have some things that happen to them in their life that help make it happen. And it could be as simple as a miss with an attachment. That's not trauma if you don't have the perfect parenting, but it could cause set up predetermined vulnerabilities could get activated. Does that make more sense? Is there hope for our kids? Absolutely. I believe that you start to see these tendencies in your children, you can begin working with them and help growing the skills that are not being, because their brain is malleable. You have time. You can start to help teach a sense of cognitive empathy, for example, getting in the shoes of somebody else and teach reflection, those types of things. But once it starts to be fixed as an adult, those things become fixed. So, hey, this has been awesome. You guys, I always go live at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's 5 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Mountain, 2 p.m. Pacific. And I'd love to see you back next week. If you guys want to know what I'm going to be talking about, jump over to my YouTube channel. It's the same handle everywhere, Kerry McAvoy, Ph.D. For those of you of TikTok, check out the series. It's on sale now. $11 off the $16. So it's like what 11 off of 16 is, it's $4.99. So, and I will be posting that series elsewhere so you can buy it other places if you're interested in it. And I'll make sure to offer it the same price for right now until the end of the month. You guys, I just so appreciate so much of you, very, very, very much. And healing after narcissist trauma, is environment equal trauma? No, not necessarily. It could be for lots of things. Environmental is a very broad catchphrase of a lot of things. The series is on sale. The Narcissistic Healing in 7 Steps is on sale through TikTok now. All right, you guys, I will see you next week. Bye-bye.